He said, no, Mark, somewhat like President Trump, he doesn't hear the word no well. I said, well, I'm not going during COVID. Are you crazy? And he said, no, let me share why this is so huge. I did go. But as in the Tale of Two Cities, it was the worst of times and it was the best of times. It ended up being the best trip of my entire life.
Welcome to the Purpose-Driven Capital Podcast, where we help you align your money with your mission and maximize your impact. Here's your host, Matt Johns.
Today, I had an incredible conversation with Michael Sheppard, President and Director of Investor Relations for Treasure Investments Corporation, a company preserving timeless treasures and offering opportunities to invest in a unique asset class that combines precious metals and fine art. Now, when I say timeless, they're doing incredible things, like recreating the only versions of the Pieta and the Statue of David in pure silver, the only such pieces in the world. You'll hear the stories behind those and many more in our discussion. Now, Michael's a very humble and accomplished person himself. In addition to his role with the Foundry, he serves as the CEO and chairman of Nevada Mining Company. Now, previously, he served as the president of the American Cancer Society in Washington, and then raised more than $400 million as president of the National Community Foundation. He's also a nationally known speaker on estate planning, and he even served as a member of President George W. Bush's Presidential Roundtable. Michael's an incredibly genuine guy. As accomplished as he is, you can tell this is a passion for him. He believes strongly that their work is important and will prove valuable for generations to come. Welcome to my conversation with Michael Sheppard. You know, the other day I was watching, I can't remember what it was, but there was something happening at the White House. And I said, I have seen that sculpture somewhere. And it was that gold eagle. And I knew exactly where it came from. As soon as we started talking again, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what Michael showed me. It was a picture of that very eagle. So what's it like? It's got to be pretty neat to go and see all the interesting sculptures that you've sent all over the world, or the Foundry sent all over the world, when you see it on TV or in these famous conversations or places.
Well, it is, for example, a few months ago, I was in Mar-a-Lago, and we were there with some special guests. Abdul Ramahan from, he's the purchasing agent for the entire country of Saudi Arabia. And we were having lunch together. And as we walked in, as soon as you go, have you been to Mar-a-Lago?
No. Tell me.
Well, as you go into the foyer and turn to the right, you see this magnificent statue. And he wanted a picture of it. And he had no idea that Foundry Michelangelo, Treasure Investment Corporation, had created that. And it was almost as if I had scripted it, you know,
Yeah.
You couldn't make it better than that. And that was really, really cool. And it is. It was, it originally was a piece by Lorenzo Guilieri, a master artist from Genoa, Italy, 5 generations. And he had done it many years ago. And then we decided to make it presidential by adding, because we'd only done it in bronze, but we added the Great Seal of the United States of America, which Mark Russo, my business partner, and I use it as our calling card. We have a small bronze challenge coin, if you're aware of challenge coins from the military, and it has our business information on it. And so we decided to take that and put it on this Lorenzo Guilieri sculpture and then present it to President Trump. And then thinking, and it was Mark Russo's idea, why don't we do it in gold? Well, in fact, it's bronze with 5 ounces of gold overlaid, because we know he loves gold and he certainly deserves gold. And so now, in answer to your question, oh my goodness, it's goosebumpy when you actually are there and you're seeing it. And that's kind of fun.
That's just a testament, one example of the many, many things that you've had an influence, or at least Foundry Michelangelo has had an influence on the world in some way, shape, or form. So for those of us who don't know any more about it, tell us a little bit more about what you guys do, where you came from, and maybe what you aspire to become.
In 1998, I was a certified senior financial planner, and I was conducting seminars for estate planning attorneys and CPAs in Lake Oswego, Oregon. And one of the attendees invited me to lunch after. And he wanted to introduce me to this young man, Mark Russo. And great. And tell me what I can do to help. And Mark said, well, I got a Lorenzo Gilieri sculpture and I sold it for $5,000 to a neurosurgeon friend of mine. And he donated it to a charity. And about a year later, they had this big black tie gala event, live auction. And lo and behold, there was that sculpture. And the bidding started out at $5,000, which is what he had sold it for. And into the auction at $50,000, there was still 20 bidders bidding.
My word.
And whose brilliance said, oh my goodness, that's $1 million. I wondered if this could be a business. I could do it over and over and over again. So the gavel went down at 63,000, as I recall, and Mark was just elated. And he said, what do you think? So my first question was, tell me if you want to be a nonprofit or for-profit. Having been former president of the American Cancer Society of Wisconsin, that's a natural question. And he said, immediately, he didn't have to think, oh, for-profit for sure. So, okay. And so what happened as a result of that luncheon meeting, he decided that the business would be going out to charities, and I help in some ways, and like the American Cancer Society, and say, look, we will supply to you and donate to you these fine art sculptures in bronze, and we will help you with the auctioneer, with banners, with reserves, guarantee that they will sell. And if they don't, we pay all the shipping, all the insurance, and you return it. Pretty easy. And the key to what is this, that we will split 50-50 so that the winning bidder writes a check to the charity that he believes in their cause anyway, or he wouldn't be there at the auction. He gets the tax deduction. As an expense from the charity, they then write us a check for 50% of what they receive. And within a year or so, Mark had 172 employees doing millions and millions of dollars. And that little simple luncheon meeting resulted in, now we quit counting at maybe $100 million to charities in America.
$100 million.
And that, oh yes, and more.
All while running a
And that was
profitable
great.
business too.
That's exactly right.
Remarkable. What a great use of that funding. So that has then translated into the foundry, which has grown far beyond what we're seeing there with these sculptures. It's going in these relationships that extend not just across the globe, but across millennia, where you're talking with people who are dealing with timeless, priceless artwork. So how do those relationships even come to be? How did that vision even come to be to start doing those kind of things?
Mark Russo is the visionary. I'm not, but I can carry out once I catch someone else's vision. I can help implement it. So I'm the implementer, and we work together with complementary skill sets. And directly in response to that question, the core business is these 6 foundries and 230 artists, and Mark's vision, the charitable business model, and then expanding that business model in the core business to galleries. We had owned and started our own gallery, and that was good, but it's not quickly scalable. And so we decided then to partner with existing galleries all over America, in all the resort areas, the ski resort areas. We've got 5 galleries in Vegas and where people go, their destinations. And if this charitable model worked so well, and it did, why not just repeat it in its simplicity? And so we decided, here's what we'll do. We'll create the sculptures. We'll help you decide with your particular constituency and clientele which sculptures sell the best. We'll still own them. We'll put them on consignment. So there's no risk to you except the space that you provide. And when they sell, guess what? We'll split 50-50. And oh my goodness, the simplicity of that business model is very scalable and excitable and very profitable. And so that's exactly what I did. And now I think we have, I'm not sure the exact number, but 127 or so galleries across America. And they love us and we love them. And it's truly a cash cow and everybody wins. And that's what you're looking for, win-win scenarios wherever you can find
And
it.
I do want to talk about more about that as in the cross section between precious metals and fine art. But before that, I want to talk about the Pieta, because for you personally, this is a deeply impactful story, something that you made happen that otherwise may not exist in the world. So right now we currently have the world's largest piece of silver. I don't know the proper way to say it because that's terribly selling it short, but the Pieta itself has now been enshrined in silver from the original molds, or from the molds that were created. I guess you can tell a little bit more about that story, but that's one of my favorite pieces of artwork. I can still remember going to the Vatican and seeing it in person, just not being able to understand how you can't see the details in pictures online. You see them in a different way in person. You experience them in a different way in person, and it's big. It's not a small piece by any means. So you went to the Vatican, you made this happen. What on earth is this? Tell me about this.
Well, that's almost totally correct, but let me give you the backstory so that you and your audience can truly appreciate what happened, because it's a God thing without exaggeration. It was an answer to an unasked prayer. What exactly happened during COVID is that I had been vaccinated and Mark Russo had not. And so he had made, I think, 15, 16 trips to the Vatican, and was, for whatever reason, the timing wasn't right. And he asked me if I would go not to the Vatican, but actually to Florence instead of Rome, and visit with Ferdinando Marinelli of the famed Ferdinando Marinelli foundries. Well, where did that fame come from? Well, the history behind it was in 1927, Pope Pius XII sensed that there could be another world war. And they hadn't been that many years from World War I, 1917. And so he decided that this Vatican collection, which obviously was priceless, needed to be protected. So he asked the cardinals to find the best foundry in the world. Interestingly enough, it was 2.5 hours rail away from Florence. And it was Ferdinando Marinelli's grandfather. And so secretly, Ferdinando Marinelli's grandfather was commissioned over the next 5 years to take what is referred to legally as posthumous original plaster Paris master molds, and then hide them away just in case. Well, nothing happened during the World War II, as Pope Pius thought it might. And then in 1972, you may recall, there was some maniac who took a sledgehammer to Michelangelo's Pietà. But what we didn't know, but the then current Pope did know, they had these posthumous original master molds. So they were able to restore it to its original condition. Well, Mark knew that. I'm not an art guy, never have been. But now I am, because Mark said, would you go? And Matt, I said no. Mm-hmm. He said, no, Mark, somewhat like President Trump, he doesn't hear the word no well. I said, well, I'm not going during COVID. Are you crazy? And he said, no, 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 let me tell you the story. Let me share why this is so huge. Well, that was his vision. It wasn't my vision, but as I said earlier, sometimes I can catch others' visions. And I said, okay. And I did go. Well, Matt, it was the worst trip of my entire life. Stopping in Zurich, Switzerland, and Frankfurt, and the escalators, the elevators weren't working. There was no staff working. I carried my own luggage up these. You know how stairs can be at airports.
All during COVID,
oh
too.
My goodness. Oh, it was, yes, it was just terrible. But as in The Tale of Two Cities, borrowing a phrase from Charles Dickens, it was the worst of times and it was the best of times. It ended up being the best trip of my entire life. And sat down with Ferdinando, and strong, spirit-filled Christian man, the grandson, shared his life, shared his story, all the history, and we just bonded. You know, it was just amazing. And as I said, it was truly an answer to an unasked prayer. And I'm not an art guy, but Ferdinando and Mark are and were, and he showed me, took me to the Galleria. You've been to Florence?
Yes, I have.
Well, then you know where the Galleria is on the Arno River in Old Town. And by the way, all those sculptures in Old Town are Ferdinando Marinelli's. They are. They're produced posthumous originals from the master molds in marble. Huh. And so I said, always looking, I was former chief negotiator for Firestone, and was taught really the win-win philosophy. And I said, well, tell me, here's the situation. He said, no, we're competitors. I said, well, all right, tell me exactly what you do. Well, we do this in marble. We have the rights from the Vatican to do up to 12 editions in marble and in bronze. And so I said, well, we do bronze, so yes, we are somewhat competitors, but we've never done any of these, and we don't do marble. So what if what we do that you cannot do, we do it in precious metal? And the rest became part of history, because it wasn't just through the Vatican. It was through Ferdinando Marinelli Foundries, who had the rights from the Vatican to, it's not reproduced, it's not replicas, it's not duplicates. It truly are posthumous originals. And so we have the rights not to do 12, but to do one, and one only in silver, and one only in gold, which was the later negotiations. It only started out with one piece, and it was the Pietà. And there is something special about the Pietà. You were there, you saw it. It's just not Michelangelo. It's just not the Medici family. It's just not a commissioned piece. It is a mother holding her son, dead, not knowing that he would be resurrected. It's the most iconic piece ever from a spiritual point of view. I'm not marginalizing David, but this is the Pietà, and it is very special.
It is.
To answer your question.
So, but it's happened. It exists in silver.
It does. The world's largest, the world's only 20,000 ounces plus in 0.9999 silver. We weren't even positive that it could be done. It had never been done, and it won't ever be done again.
Fascinating. And now you've talked about, you've mentioned David too, Statue of David. So,
well,
that's another one.
We have the right through Ferdinando Marinelli and through the Vatican and through the Global Art Authority, which Mark Russo is part of the board of directors, and Dr. Chetzi, who's the curator of the Michelangelo Museum, and Ferdinando Marinelli to do all 72 pieces from the Vatican and Renaissance collection. We have completed 7. We just completed the Grudges of Madonna at about 5,500 ounces of pure silver. We are in the process of completing David, 17 and a half feet, 44,000 ounces. And our goal is by February 1st to have it completed. We unveiled the Pietà in Las Vegas with Steve Forbes in front of 3,000 attendees at Freedom Fest and over 1 million through Fox Nation worldwide. And it was tearful, joyful. It was just amazing. It was great. So that would have been the milestone of certainly my business career. And I don't know how and when David in pure silver will be unveiled. That hasn't been decided, but the Lord knows, and we're counting on you.
So to be clear, though, the Pieta piece is the world's heaviest, largest piece of silver, correct? And
Yes.
then the statue of David is going to eclipse that by almost double. Is that right?
More than double. The Pietà is a little over 20,000, I think 20,322 ounces. And whereas the David is 44,000 and counting. You never know till it's totally done exactly.
So when you're talking, and I'm thinking about valuation, because of course you got the priceless art piece of it, but just in sheer volume of precious metals here. I don't know what the price of silver is right now, but that's got to be an incredible amount just in and of itself for the valuation of that piece.
Well, yeah, silver is about $47 an ounce now, times 44,000 ounces. That's exactly right. It's that in and itself
That's
is a
right.
good investment. If it were not for blue chip fine art.
That's right. So then you combine the fine art piece on top of that. So that's one of the interesting things that you guys do is you bring things to life that otherwise could not become reality for so many of us, because A, it's really hard to get the rights to do this kind of thing. B, you got to have the skill to actually do it. And I don't want to get too much into the process of what all this takes, because I've seen a little bit of it and I know it's intense in and of itself. But I'm just thinking about what you've brought to life and combining these two elements, these two investments that are so common among people who are into alternatives in general, for whatever reasons, for valuation growth or for even for tax benefits, whatever it is. These are two separate things that you guys have combined into what seems like kind of a flywheel of value. Now, I don't want to project anything. I don't want to say that it's going to grow. I can't say any of that, of course, but what I can say is it's a very unique setup and something that's incredible. And I'd love for you to tell me more about that from an investor's eyes. What are they seeing when they look at these kind of things?
Well, that's an interesting question, Matt, because heretofore, historically, blue chip fine art really was for the uber wealthy. And these pieces that go to Sotheby's or Christie's and get auctioned off, we read about it, we hear about it, but it's not us. It's kind of cool, but it doesn't affect us. But what Mark has done through his vision was not to the blue collar workers so much, but the upper middle class that are looking for investments and in some degree, 5%, 10% maybe in precious metals, but never really in blue chip fine art. That was really beyond our means. But now, because of what Masterpiece Investments has done, Masterworks, they were able to fractionalize it. And that was a very successful business model. Well, we can do the same. The difference between Masterworks and Treasure Investments is that we own the artwork, they buy it. And so the return on the investor's investment can be relatively quick. It doesn't have to be 5 to 7 to 10 years, number one. Number two, if 5 to 10% of your portfolio should be in precious metals, how much should be in fine art? Well, we don't know. But, oh my goodness, if you can combine blue chip fine art with precious metal, you have an alternative asset that heretofore has never been even envisioned, let alone created. And that then gives it a relatively small target market, but oh my goodness, a great opportunity. So we've expanded the target market by doing, maybe 10, 12 trade shows, investment shows, where we meet folks like you who say, wow, I actually can do this. And then they are investing in both precious metal and fine art simultaneously. And that's the alternative investment. And many do even more than 5 to 10% when they realize the potential return on the investment. Because when you think of precious metal, gold and silver, it's risky, but it's been going up and up for decades, forever. In biblical times, what was it? It was gold and silver. Now, you take that investment and you look at fine art. Well, in the last 3 decades or so, blue chip fine art has surpassed the stock market an average of 14.8% every year. Oh my goodness. So it's all risk reward from an investor's point of view. So if you can limit the risk and increase the reward, the ratio gets better and better. And so in a trade show, an investment trade show like Freedom Fest or Limitless or the Money Show or 1640 Society or Family Offices Club, which we're doing in December, and all those things, you then give that to the opportunity because those are people who are there to learn about investment. And now they're learning about alternative investments because they want to spread their risk. And that's exactly what Warren Buffett says to do. And he's been very successful. So that makes it much more doable, much more reachable, and much wiser for all of us to accumulate as many shares as we can in a company like Treasure Investment.
The piece is kept in your showrooms and whatnot around the world. And then is there eventually a liquidity event where one of these might be sold at auction or something like that, where the shareholders can then benefit from their investment? And I understand it sounds like there's a liquidity opportunity along the way where you can sell your shares or whatever fractional piece you have too. So how does that work from a real practical standpoint for an investor?
There are several opportunities for return on investment or an exit strategy, if you will. One is, for example, we were some years ago offered $1 billion for the company. Well, we have authorized 300 million shares. We only have 3.5 million left. So we're almost done, number one. So that's a limited edition.
Privately held, right?
All privately held, thank you. So one exit strategy would be, what if we would have accepted that offer? Well, you divide $1 billion by 300 million, and you've got an exit strategy immediately. Well, when you think of a bell curve, and we're growing exponentially, and both the core business and the Vatican collection, and if you have 72 pieces in the Vatican collection, and you can do it in silver and gold, you have 144 pieces. You've only created 7. So what's the growth curve look like? So why would you, on behalf of your 300 or so shareholders, why would you sell out that early? Now, that begs the question, what would you have sold in your counter proposal for 3 to 4 billion? Because then you divide that by 300 million, and all of a sudden, if they came in, for example, the shares are officially priced and valued at $5. But if you meet us at a show, we can discount them and do, in fact, like we did at the Limitless show, to $2.50. So if you buy in at $2.50 and you can exit at 10, 15, 22, and you can do that relatively quickly, meaning in a year or so, my goodness, that's something that's of interest to many people. So that's another exit strategy. Well, you can take the company public as well. During COVID, that didn't work. During the former administration, no. During this administration, oh my goodness, it's changed. Now would be the time. And I went to Wall Street and I met with 3 investment bankers, and they all wanted to take us out or take us public, and that's great. We're now meeting with a 4th who have come to the museum, the co-founders, both. And I don't know that I want to tell who that is, but you would know the name immediately because they just took recently a great company public, and it was the most profitable, I don't know in history, but it was extremely successful. And they have, as when you come to visit us, our treat, you'll be blown away. You'll be part of history in the making. And both of these co-founders, 2 separate trips, are just want to do it. And so now Mark and our executive team, Jason Dilling and Ricky Reed and myself are saying, maybe this is the exit strategy because the timing is now right, whereas before it was not. And then, even if that didn't happen, as you alluded to, Matt, every one of these pieces will sell. We have them appraised. The value of the company now is about $3.5 billion.
Just based on the appraisal of these and any kind of...
Based on the appraisals of our inventory and all of these pieces, and these have been exponential. They've been great. I mean, you can take a piece like the Pieta. Now think about this, Matt. We've got about $1.5 million invested up front, which is why we were selling shares, to buy the silver, create the Pieta in pure silver. And the first appraisal that we had by the official appraisers in New York City for Christie's and Sotheby's, and it was his last appraisal that he ever did. And he wanted to do the Pieta. He was 99 years old. And he appraised it at 70 million, pre-appraised it because it wasn't completed. And now we've had our 3rd appraisal, and it's now appraised at 172 million. Now, again, what was the cost? Over about 6 to 8 months, $1.5 million. It's appraised at 172. What will it sell for? You never know true value of anything until it sells. If you don't believe that, ask a divorcee what she got for her diamond rings. That's a terrible analogy, but it's so true. My grandfather was a diamond broker, and he's the one who gave that to me. So I know the markups. So it's kind of crazy, but it is the reality.
That's interesting.
So even if it only sold for 100 million, what happens to that? Well, minus the cost, we then divide that amongst 300 or so shareholders, the most 300 million outstanding shares issued. And you can see what the dividends are going to be. Mm-hmm. It's pretty exciting.
You created such a unique value proposition because it's not just in the ability to do what you do so well, but it's those relationships, that actual connection in negotiating these deals that very few people in the world could ever do, let alone have done. So all that stuff creates immense value. Now, I did have a quick question, though. You mentioned Masterworks. And my understanding with how Masterworks operates is they have a single work of art, and then you buy fractional shares in that work of art. But what you're describing to me, if I'm understanding correctly, is people are buying shares in the company rather than the individual pieces themselves. Is that accurate?
And thank you for bringing that point more clear. That's exactly right, Matt.
Yeah.
And that's really a better business model. Now, having said that, we can also fractionalize. It's not mutually exclusive. And we are looking at tokenization and doing all the things that should be done And we're looking at all the things that we can do with cryptocurrency, memorial coins and pure silver with Lorenzo Guilieri's images. There's just so many things that people like the brilliant minds and the visionaries like Mark can do. And people like Jason Dilling, our president, and Ricky Reed, our chief operating officer, they can actually bring. My job is different. I'm a partner in the company. I'm an investor in the company, but I'm not an employee, which allows me to become director of investor relations. And I do the presentations, as you know, at like the Limitless investment conferences, because I like to do that. And Mark, who could do it and do it even better, doesn't like to do it. And we like him to fly the higher helicopter as chairman of our board and CEO. And it allows me to take care of the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you take your dynamic, of course, is fantastic. But what you just described is you're taking the most timeless, priceless artwork in the world, and now you're bringing it into this whole digital realm of tokenizing and talking about offering everybody a chance to have a little piece of this in our digital wallet on our phone. I just think that that's what a unique bridge from generation to generation from time to time, really, if we're looking at it in a, sort of a more bird's eye view. I have to ask one question because I know that you are an estate planning expert in what you've done in the past. From an estate planning perspective, without going into financial advice, of course, how is this kind of thing used generationally for families?
Well, of course, for example, I'll be speaking at the Abundance Group in Tampa, and I have worked with, we did at the Money Show in Vegas last year. I did a podcast and an interview with Madison Trust, and of course now with you and others, and my own family, personal situation for our 4 grandchildren and our 2 sons. We set up revocable and irrevocable trust, and that's tax advantaged, obviously. And that's generational, to your question specifically. And something neat about, for example, not only in the investment or the shares, but the artwork, our grandkids will be blessed financially, as will our 2 boys. And that's great to be able to pass that along generationally. But as they should, they'll get this money and they'll spend it. Well, that's fine. But they will also get artwork. And the artwork they already have. Now, the chances are when you have a piece of artwork from Poppy, that's me, to my grands, that they could sell it for sure. And it could always be a reserve just in case. But the chances are, because Poppy and Gammy gave it to them, it may stay to the 3rd and 4th generation. And that's a legacy of significance that money cannot buy and never will. Does that answer your question?
You're bringing in the relational side too. And I just want to close with one question regarding the relationships, because that's essentially what, I mean, of course, I talked about the mechanics. That's understood. That's a difficult thing to do for anybody. You have to be the best in the world to do what you do. But from a human perspective, you've made some incredible relationships, and you have to have a very good dynamism to be able to do what you've done. You've met some incredible people. You mentioned Steve Forbes earlier. You mentioned going to Mar-a-Lago. What would you say, aside from the Vatican, because I trust that that's probably up near the top, if not at the top, but what relationships or stories do you have that you think you treasure the most from the human perspective with what you do?
That's a thought-provoking question, Matt. I hadn't given previous thought to that. There's been so many, I just don't know. Steve has been a friend for many, many years. But I would have to say the most influential person that the Lord has introduced me to would be Mark Russo, because we're bonded spiritually, financially, professionally. And as I said earlier, our skill sets are so complementary. he's my best friend. And to be partnered with your best friend is like my marriage with Bobby for now 60 years. We're lovers, yes. We're business partners, but we're best friends. And the relationship that Mark Russo and I have is like a marriage because it's the triangle that's perfect with Jesus, Mark, and myself together. And to be in business together, that is very, very special. And the things that he has come up with and created, being the visionary that he is, for example, from a business point of view, when I make the presentation, one of the parts of the closing, if you will, is what's called matching consideration. And people go, well, what's that? Well, because we're vertically integrated and have the control of the foundries, the artist, the master mold, we can create about anything. Matter of fact, Mark has recently created what's going to be presented to President Trump, hopefully July 4th at the White House, will be the 250th anniversary, which he has designed, the Liberty Bell draped in a flag, an eagle. It's phenomenal. Matter of fact, one of our investors that we met at the Family Offices Club is a composer. And I asked him, would he create a piece of music that will forever be with whatever we end up naming this 250th. It could be called America's Anniversary. It could be called God Bless America. It could be called, and what I'm thinking about is, and I've asked Mark to consider, because he's the final authority and he's the artist and it's his masterpiece, is on the bottom of this gift to America for the permanent White House collection will be Jeremiah 29:11. I know the thoughts I have for you, declares the Lord, and there are plans to prosper you and to keep you from harm and to give you a hope and a future. And so what I'm hopeful for is to rename this piece A Hope and a Future. And if Mark doesn't agree with that, that's okay. But then I'm asking the composer to name the music A Hope and a Future. Who doesn't want that? And who doesn't want the blessing of Jeremiah 29:11? And then I'm reaching out. You know the name Michael W.
Sure.
Smith? Well, he's a close friend and my neighbor. And
No kidding.
I'm asking Smitty. I live in Broward. He's the greatest Christian lyricist that I know. And I'm asking him to do the words. And then if he then will, if you get my vision is to, on the lawn, it's July 4th, you have not just a band, but an orchestra. And Smitty does the song with this music. And I'll send the music it's in its fourth iteration, and I'll send it to you. Remind me to do so. But it's pretty cool. And I love it. I just absolutely love it. Now, back to
In consideration. There it is. Yeah.
If the business model weren't good enough, what we do, because not that we're not good guys, because we are, but we offer folks like yourself our treat to come visit this world-class private museum and the foundry and to see a pouring and truly be part of history in the making. And when David is complete, and already those shareholders who either traded their silver for shares, and we have many who have done that, and or who just bought shares that went into the buying of the silver for David and the creation of David, what we've done is we've created a perpetual, in perpetuity memorial with their names. And we borrowed that idea from Museum of the Bible and Washington, D.C., and the Ark in Kentucky, because when we contributed to that, we had our names, put on the plaques. So we're doing that, and that's really cool. But even better than that, if that weren't good enough, because everybody can't, go all the way to Battleground, Washington, where we're located. But even better than that is that we have offered, if you, for example, personally, and you probably will anyway, but if you come visit us, and 97% of the people that visit invest, then dollar for dollar, we will secure your entire investment with matching fine art of your choosing. And people go, no, that's too good to be true. No, our margins are so great, at least, well, not at least, but generally speaking, 99.5%. So we're good guys, but we can afford to do it. And we do. And so no matter what happens, they'll be pleased. So, I mean, you've never heard of that.
No.
I've never heard of that. But we're doing it and have done it now for these many years. And it's just exciting to me to be able, it's sort of like if you find a treasure of great price, why wouldn't you want to share it? And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm sharing this. I'm not selling anything. Truly not. I'm not a good salesman, but I am a good presenter. And I'm presenting an opportunity to share what has been shared and blessed to me and my family.
Michael, this conversation has been a blessing to me. Just knowing you has been a blessing to me, because I think that what you're doing is just outstanding. Preserving history and then bringing it to life and creating opportunity for so many people. I look forward to seeing what may be happening in the coming year here with the 250th anniversary, with David, with all of the exciting things that you guys have going on at Foundry Michelangelo. So thank you for this time with me, and I wish you all the best.
Well, blessings upon you, Matt.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Purpose Driven Capital podcast. If you found this valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Are you ready to align your money with your mission? Discover the Purpose-Driven Capital Framework, access practical tools, and build meaningful connections to grow your movement and multiply your impact at purposedrivencapital.co. The views and opinions expressed in this show are solely those of the individual speaking and do not reflect the views or opinions of Honey Hive Capital, any broker-dealer, investment advisory firm, or its sponsors. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing in this content, nor any communications from it, should be treated as constituting financial, investment, legal, tax, or other advice of any kind, or as a recommendation to buy or sell an interest with respect to any investment. We look forward to you joining us next time.